You know, many people call it the greatest outdoor show on earth. The Calgary Stampede is a 10-day Western-style extravaganza with an incredible rodeo, fireworks, midway, and concerts. It attracts more than 1 million local and international visitors each and every year. But it won't be attracting our Prime Minister this year, however, who's decided to skip the event. To chat about this in more detail is Sun political columnist Brian Lilley, who joins us once again from Toronto. Brian, many within the Liberal caucus say it wasn't possible with Justin Trudeau also having to attend NATO meetings right now.
Well, I mean, that is correct because no one has developed the technology to transport an individual from Calgary to Washington in what, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, in 5 days. You possibly can't. It's a ridiculous argument, Hal. Of course he could have attended, and if he was scheduled to attend. They've known when Stampede was for a long time. They knew when the NATO meetings were. He could have shown up Friday or Saturday, still been in Washington, D.C. for plenty of time for the NATO meetings. If he had been flying to, the far side of Poland for this meeting, okay, maybe, because, it doesn't matter what age you are, what shape you're in. Travel like that takes a toll and you want to be at your best. And so maybe you need to, okay, no, we're not going to fly out to Calgary and then fly all the way to Warsaw or beyond for a meeting. That'll be too much. Big drain. He's got to be sharp. This is Calgary to Washington, D.C. This guy travels across the country all the time. And in fact, what was he doing on the weekend? He was in Toronto attending multicultural events and going to a Hindu temple and things like that, which is, all fine, normal political stuff for people to do. But don't say that it's due to scheduling. We know why he's not there. He would be about as popular as that pancake flip that everyone was sharing over the weekend on social media, where Justin Trudeau flips a pancake. I think it was at last year's Stampede, and it just splatters everywhere. He wasn't welcome. That's why he didn't go. That's why Jagmeet Singh, the NDP leader, didn't go. Nothing to do with logistics or anything else. And by the way, well, Singh wasn't there. Naheed Nenshi was, and he had a huge reception. So, they're making excuses with anything else they tell you. It's their popularity.
Now, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is attending the Stampede, and he was fairly well received. At one event he attended, the crowd even broke out in a thunderous rendition of "O Canada."
Yeah, they did. And I'll tell you, I've seen political events start, especially down east. Down east, they're a little old fashioned, and you start a political meeting and everyone stands and they say no Canada, but it tends to be small crowds and it's well planned out. And that's how every meeting starts. That was something when Pierre showed up on stage and the crowd just started singing "No Canada" and he joined in and everyone on stage. But that is normal patriotic Canada. I keep hearing that we have no patriotism. People don't like the country. They don't like the troops. I go to a hockey game. I go to a baseball game. I go to concerts. I was at a Brooks and Dunn concert a couple of weeks ago. They're very much about the red, white, and blue in America. They brought 3 Canadian soldiers in uniform on stage and sang their praises, and the crowd of more than 20,000 people went wild. People want to be patriotic about their country. We just happen to be led by someone who doesn't believe in patriotism, believes that Canada is the first post-national state, that we have no core identity. And in Pierre Poilievre, maybe the crowd sees something that says, you know what? No, we are who we are, and we are Canadian, and this is a great country, and let's celebrate it.
So wait a minute, you saw Brooks and Dunn. Did you get the chance to do the boot, scoot, and boogie?
All three. Yes, all three. It was a great time.
Brian, let's talk a bit about the polls right now. Where do the Tories, Liberals, and NDP stand?
There have been some polls that show a slight tightening, but we're still talking a slight of like 41 to 27, let's say. But it's still a 15 to 20 point lead. Across the country, Justin Trudeau remains highly unpopular. Pierre Poilievre is the favorite to be best prime minister. He's not winning by a landslide on that, but he's still ahead of Trudeau, Singh, and none of the above, which a little while ago you couldn't say that. But for the last 6 months plus, Pierre Poilievre has been coming out on top as the main choice for best prime minister. The one poll that did show that tightening that I mentioned, there was a big blip in Atlantic Canada that I'm not sure will hold, and that could just be noise. And when I talk to pollsters, that's what they say. If there's something that's out of the ordinary, it could just be something off, and they may be oversampled in one area or another. But the overall trend is still towards a massive majority. I was seeing one polling model that said the Conservatives would get, one said 213 seats, another said 218. The Liberals would lose 99 seats. Things are very good for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, and they're very bad for Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, and for Jagmeet Singh and the NDP. Everyone's talking about, well, will Justin Trudeau quit? Should he? Should they have a national caucus meeting, a leadership? What about the NDP? They got 11%, 10.9% in that Toronto St. Paul's by-election. When people fled from the Liberals, they didn't go to the NDP, they went to the Conservatives.
Now let's circle back to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Washington once again, Brian. There's a lot of pressure on Canada to increase defense spending, and a new report now says we're even spending less than what the government claims.
The government's been claiming that they're going to hit 1.7, I believe 1.76% this year, that is their target, their goal. The parliamentary budget officer has come out with a review and said they've miscalculated. It's actually going to be below 1.5%. When you're going into a NATO meeting where you're in the bottom quarter of the class, never mind the bottom half, the bottom quarter, when you've had country after country step up, this is something. Hey, look, every American president going back decades has been harping at NATO members to step up with their defense spending. Very few of the countries were meeting the 2% of GDP target, and Canada hasn't met it in decades. Whether it was Bill Clinton or George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Trump got some countries to step up with bluster and threats. The Russian invasion of Ukraine made a lot of countries, especially those in Eastern Europe, step up. Some of the other European countries have stepped up. We're down at the bottom of the class with Luxembourg, and we're not investing in R&D. We're not investing in new proper equipment, and we still use our defense spending as if it's an industrial regional industrial development program where we make sure the jobs are in key ridings that politicians want to win. We've just announced a new shipbuilding program that is more about keeping jobs in certain areas than buying us the best ship. It's going to cost way more, and it's going to take years and years and years more to build. That's not how we should be operating.
Brian, the recent employment report by Stats Canada showed some worrying numbers right now. The study was backed up by an issue that you've been talking about for quite some time: immigration outpacing job growth.
Yeah, and Hal, I was talking to an HR specialist who works in placing people in jobs, works with recruiting agencies, and he says every week he's got new immigrants in his office distraught because they were sold a bill of goods on coming to Canada. These aren't the folks that come as temporary foreign workers or international students and then get here. These are people coming through the regular economic immigrant channels, the permanent residence class. And right now, he said they're being sold a bill of goods. Come to Canada, you'll get a good job, you'll get a home, life's going to be better. And that's not the reality. It's not the reality for Canadians anymore either, and it's not the reality for new immigrants. On both temporary foreign workers and new immigrants, the unemployment rate is above 10%. One's at 11, one's at 12%. The overall unemployment rate has crept up to 6.4%. Just over a year ago, it was at 5. This has been creeping up because you read the Stats Canada report. This past month, we lost 1,400 jobs. We added 99,000 people to the population of working age population of 15 and over. Every single month, we're adding that type of population growth. That is not sustainable. As the Prime Minister has said, it's more people than we can absorb. So we don't, housing crisis in much of the country, a jobs crisis. And what is the government's response? It's to talk about it, but not do anything.
Yeah, let's talk a bit more about that housing crisis in many regions of the country right now, Brian. Now, you say the Trudeau government continues to flirt with the idea of a capital gains tax when selling your home?
Yeah, this is something they've been back and forth on since 2018. And then when people like myself write about it, they say, oh, no, 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 that's fake news. They've actually claimed that it is fake news that they want to do this. And when I first reported on it, it was based off of a Liberal Party policy document. It had Liberal Party logo on it. It had the MP who brought it forward that they wanted a capital gains tax. They said it was to deal with speculators and home flippers. And so under that proposal, which they considered but ultimately rejected years ago, it would have been a 50% capital gains tax on your home if you sold within the first year, 25% in the second year, then 15, 10, down to 5 if you sold the home after 5 years. But that's still a big hit. So the Liberals know that this is politically unpopular, but they keep going back to it. They keep funding studies by this professor, academic out of the University of British Columbia named Paul Kershaw. He's behind a group called Generation Squeeze. What do they advocate for? Lots of housing changes, including taxing the income that you make from the growth and value of your home. Many Canadians have decided that this is their best retirement investment option. Yeah, sure, they're going to have some RRSPs. Sure, they're going to have maybe a small company pension plan that pays out a bit, but not a ton. They're going to have the CPP, but their big nest egg is going to be their home, which they hope to sell one day. And the part of the bargain in Canada has been you're not taxed on the sale of your primary residence. You have a cottage, an investment home, that's different. The Liberals keep flirting with this. They keep talking about it. And then just 2 weeks ago, Trudeau's out in British Columbia. He does an oceans announcement and then turns around and goes and does a private, secret town hall with members of Generation Squeeze. They won't release the full transcript of what was said, especially what they won't release, the question and answer portion. So, I'm not going to trust them on this. Neither should you. And Liberal MPs need to speak up clearly and say that they won't support this because the Trudeau government is out of cash. It's out of, they just want to keep spending. They're going to look for new ways to tax you, and this is one.
Yeah, all that home equity needs to stay with the homeowner and with their families, absolutely. Brian, a new book from a former Liberal cabinet minister is raising some eyebrows, and it doesn't paint a rosy picture of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, this is Marc Garneau, who served as transportation minister for 5 years. Then he was foreign minister for, I think, about 9 months before Trudeau turfed him. And Garneau paints a picture that's similar to what others have. That Trudeau's not interested in speaking to his cabinet. He doesn't want advice from them. They'll decide everything in the prime minister's office and then tell them what to do. Garneau said, Trudeau had no interest in the transportation file. Thought that would change when he became foreign affairs minister. Nope. Uh, no advice sought, no advice given, completely distant. This is similar to what Bill Morneau has said, the former finance minister. Jody Wilson-Raybould had even harsher terms. Liberal backbench MP. Well, actually, I think she was parliamentary secretary at one point. Selena Cesar-Chavannes. She talks about how Trudeau viewed women, especially women of color like her, as tokens to be played and used. You've got Andrew Leslie, the retired general who was a Liberal MP for a long time and government whip, saying that, back to the issue we were talking about a moment ago, Canada doesn't take defense spending seriously. Garneau and Leslie have both said we are not viewed favorably on the international stage because of the policies and lack of action by the Trudeau government. This is a pattern. When this many people who work closely with you are saying these bad things, maybe it's not them. Maybe it's you.
Brian, the Saskatchewan government won a huge reprieve in court. Premier Scott Moe said he would not collect the carbon tax on home heating. And when the feds came to collect, a judge said, wait a minute, not so fast.
Yeah, it's just an injunction for now, but the feds thought they were going to be able to march in and garnish $42 million from the Saskatchewan government over this carbon tax money that they say they're owed. You'll recall the Trudeau government announced that they would not collect the carbon tax on home heating oil across the country. Now, you'll find some people in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, in BC, and Ontario, elsewhere, that heat with home heating oil, but it's a small minority in most of the country. In Atlantic Canada, it's huge. And they did that change because of political reasons. So Scott Moe said, we're not going to collect the carbon tax on home heating products of any kind in Saskatchewan. Now, he's able to do that. In other provinces like Alberta or here where I am in Ontario, the government doesn't own the heating company, the energy company. It's private, it's Enbridge, it's Union, it's TransCanada, what have you. There, it's Sask Energy. So he just told them, don't collect that. We're not remitting it. The federal government, was very coy about what their reaction was going to be. The Trudeau government tried to just say, well, we'll see. They hadn't said much. Then they go to court to get this money. It's, as I say, it's an injunction for now, but there will be a bigger court case. And I think the Moe government will have a valid point here.
Political columnist Brian Lilley, thanks so much for your time today and for joining us from Toronto.
Thank you, Hal.